Hey everybody, Mr. Pomedy here. Wanted to talk to you about something that I recently decided to play around with and has really helped me with my workflow, really helped me with my organization. Something that I saw initially and didn't really kind of play around with, kind of dismissed really quickly. And so what I'm talking about is the priority button tab in Google Drive. And so whether or not you remember, in this past March, priority showed up in everybody's Google Drive. Me personally, I looked at it briefly when it came out, and I didn't quite understand its point, so I quickly dismissed it and moved on with my life. This past week, as I mentioned, I had a conversation with some buddies of mine, and it kind of piqued my interest back into priority, and so I kind of dived back into it this week. So what is priority? Okay, so there's two sections. There's the priority section, and then there's the workspaces section. I'm going to spend most of my time on workspaces because I think that's really the coolest part of this priority. But I'll start with what priority is. So priority is kind of this panel or stream along the top. And what priority does is it uses machine learning, AI, and kind of looks at things that you've recently opened, recently edited, but uses machine learning and AI to kind of predict documents that you're going to open based upon the time of day, other things that maybe you've recently opened that day. So it's going to kind of predict other things that you want. So that's kind of cool. Nothing wrong with that. It's a nice landing page for your documents. If you remember, it's similar to if you go to your My Drive, you now have kind of a similar thing with quick access. Kind of does the same thing. Along the top, you can get your recently opened documents. But what I wanted to spend the most time on is workspaces. So what workspaces are is lists that you create, or playlists, or whatever you'd like to call it, of documents that you tend to use a lot. So you can set up different workspaces depending upon different things that you're doing. So this is great for upcoming units that you're working on, department or CT, things that you constantly are looking in or working on, school-wide documents. Those are just a few examples. Students could also use this, so they could set up a workspace for each one of their class periods, and they could load it with all the documents that they're working on that week or that month. And I know a lot of you might say, well, how is that any different than a folder? It's not really. So all these things would still live in whatever folder that you had them in, and you could still navigate to folders, sure. But this just gives you a quick and easy landing space for you to find those documents that you tend to always go to, instead of having to navigate to them every single time. So it's just a quick way to get into Google Drive, get what you need, and get into being productive, which I know for a lot of people who have used Google a lot over the last few years, your Google Drive is probably exploding with documents, and it's increasingly hard to find things quickly that you need to work on. So again, Workspaces just gives you that way to quickly find the things that you're working on. So with Workspaces, you can have up to 25 documents. It can be anything from your drive, from your shared drive, anything that's shared with you. So any of those things can be placed here in those workspaces. As I mentioned, you can have up to 25 documents, and when you're ready to look, ready to click on it, you can click on the first 5 that show up, or if there's others that you're looking for, obviously you can click on the View More that's down on the bottom to get the whole big list of all of your documents. So you can see here's all of my documents. You have a couple editing options. You can rename it, hide it, remove it. You can add more files as need be. Okay, so really quickly, I'm going to create another workspace for you. So if you've never created one, obviously, this space here will be blank. Okay. But for me, I'm going to click on Create a New Workspace. So I'm going to create a new one. It's going to ask for a title. So let's say I'm going to go POG Resources. If I could spell, that would be fantastic. And then I'm going to press Create. A new window is going to pop up. It's going to ask me to add files. It's also going to predict or suggest certain documents based upon the title of my workspace. So let's say I wanted to click on here. I wanted to add this document. That's exactly one that I want. It's also going to suggest a few others. You can then go up to the right-hand corner and you can add more documents. So I can search my recent. I can search my drive. I can search my shared drive. I could search shared with me. I could search starred. But let's go back to recent. And let's say I want those items here. I want to add those. So I'm going to insert those as well. The other thing that's really cool, so I've added some documents in this panel or this window. I can close it. The other thing is, while you're in your drive or your shared or your recent, and let's say there's a document, let's say I really want this document. Okay, I've worked on it, or somebody just shared it with me, and I know that I'm going to be working on it a lot, and I just want to put it in my workspace. I can right-click on the document, and now there is a new item in your menu that says Add to Workspaces. I can tell it which workspace I want to add it to, and now it is added to my workspace. So now I have another workspace there. When you're ready to remove items from your workspace, you simply hover over it, click on the three dots, go down to Remove Workspace, and when you're done with a workspace, you can do the same. There's a little drop-down caret there. Click on it, remove workspace, or maybe you don't need it right now. You have a ton of workspaces. Let's say you have more than 5 that show. You can hide that workspace if you're not using it at the time being. So that really quickly is Workspaces and Priority, and one of the newer features in Google Drive.